control the vertigo.
Welcome to Anthologic, the TV anthology podcast. I am your host, Mark. Anthologic is a podcast dedicated to exploring the good, the bad, and the odd of horror, science fiction, and the best of mystery suspense anthology shows and series on TV. Join me as we slip through the cracks of reality to approach the extremes of experience, where we can peruse the stories and art of a sinister fairground of strange and wonderful rides. And now we go on to the show that is the focus of this particular episode. Welcome to this episode of Anthology with your host Mark. Today I'm talking about a slightly unusual episode of TV in that it's not from an anthology series, which most of our ones are, of course. However, what it is a particular episode of a TV series which has got an anthology structure. Now, there's at least 2 comedy shows that use this premise, and this is one of them. And this was drawn randomly. I picked randomly. I have a random number generator, and I'll run it, and I'll count how many down it gives me, and I got to this. And the one today is Futurama. The other one I'm well aware of is in The Simpsons, the Treehouse of Horror, famous Treehouse of Horror episodes. However, Futurama had their own take on it, and they did one called Anthology of Interest. They did a couple with that. There's probably other comedy shows that, or maybe even drama shows that do this kind of thing. But there's the only 2 I'm aware of are the ones I just stated. So, Anthology of Interest, which was episode 16 of season 2, originally aired on May 21st, 2000. So it's over 20 years old now. So this consists of 3 stories within the one episode, and the wrapping story, I guess, right? Okay, so here we get introduced to this by... comedy shows are always difficult to review because you end up telling the gags, which I'm going to try and avoid mostly. I'll kind of get into the plot and what I thought of it, really. So I'll try that. But, however, some of it's kind of ridiculous when you go through it, so you have to kind of address the comedy. The overarching story is that Professor Farnsworth has got this new invention he wants to demonstrate called the Finglonger. It's basically a long finger, right? He calls it the Finglonger. It's a glove with a long extension to the finger, right? And he's kind of obsessed with making it stuff long. And he uses it to switch on this machine, which turns out to be a what-if machine, he calls it. And the crew who are gathered to look at his Finglonger sort of ask, what is it? And he tells them it's a what-if machine. You can put in things to say, what if this had happened? And it will show you that alternate reality. And that's how this one goes. First one is, because there's Bender, the robot, and it's called Terror at 500 feet. And his premise is, what if I were 500 feet tall? And immediately we see him getting built by lots of little benders and launched into space by fire, blasting out of his arse, going to Earth. Meanwhile, we see Fry goofing around in Central Park, all on his own, a bit lonesome, and suddenly this giant robot crashes to the ground, flattens a duck, and Fry starts talking to it, and it turns out Fry and Bender are immediate friends, and we get like this little happy montage to the sounds of Hanson do-wop, and them playing in the park and doing goofy things like spitting off bridges, but when Bender spits off a bridge, it's like a lake of oil onto the road. So yeah, okay. Anyway, all this shenanigans incites the military to come and attack. So this is a bit kaiju, like, giant things fighting. It's also a bit Iron Giant, a human befriending a giant robot, and the military intercede. And we get a moment where the crew of Futurama are kind of looking out the top of the tower at Bender destroying the city, and Amy says something like, "There goes the neighborhood. Oh, there goes another neighborhood," as he's destroyed the city. And Zoidberg has a suggestion. He's got a grow large array, which he says, "We need a guinea pig for this," and they literally pick out a guinea pig to do it. However, he enlarges Zoidberg, who then starts wreaking havoc on his own, but it's more like he's annoyed about how the city is treating him rather than taking on Bender. But then Bender's annoyed because he says, "This is my city to destroy, what are you doing?" And they start fighting, Godzilla-like, and they fight and they fight and they fight. But then Bender gets Shea Stadium, fills it with boiling water, trips or pushes Zoidberg into it, and basically creates boiled lobster. But in the end, he chops off Bender's feet, which means he impales himself on the Empire State Building rather than climbing it. And then Fry tells everyone off, "What have you done to this poor robot?" And the robot and Bender's like, "The only dream I had was to destroy all humans." And what is that a crime? And all that. It was all that kind of stuff. And then it ends. Then we get a story about Leela, the one-eyed pilot, who is extremely non-impulsive. She's very, very predictable, and her question is, what was I be like if I was a tiny bit more impulsive? A little bit more, and we set the scene, and basically she's been impulsive. She's bought herself new boots, but this time they've got a tiny green stripe on, which she thinks indicates she's super impulsive. And then we see a scene where Zoidberg's feeding his man-eating anteaters and telling Leela that he's going to leave everything to her because she's so utterly predictable and won't do anything impulsive. And just as he's telling her this, and she realises she's coming into a vast fortune, she kicks him in the pit of anteaters. And then it just cascades from there. People start suspecting it might be her. She kills people left, right, and centre on impulse. And it's got a decent comedy ending. I'll leave it there. If you haven't seen it, you can sort of see it yourself. So essentially, it's about how Leela deals with it. Also, I should have mentioned in this segment and in the rapid conclusion segment later, we first encounter Scruffy, the janitor. He has appeared before as a roadie for the Beastie Boys, but in this he becomes basically the janitor around the place. So we get Scruffy, old bloke with a moustache, talks pretty gruffly. "Hey, I'm Scruffy," like that. So he appears, and basically Leela's going for everyone here that suspects her even a little bit of doing something wrong. And they're at the comedy one here. Well, there's lots of comedy, but because the professor left a video wheel, and Leela says, "Oh, really?" And he goes, "Yeah, it's a video of you killing him." So that's Hermes, and she dispatches Hermes for a second kill, really. And that's it. Finally, we get to the third story, Unfreeze of a Lifetime, where basically Frey asks what would happen if he'd never been frozen. And then we find out that all of time and space might be destroyed by this change in the flow. And basically Al Gore turns up with what he calls his Vice Presidential Action Rangers, which consists of Nichelle Nichols voicing herself. Al Gore voices himself here as well. Gary Gygax, the creator of Dungeons and Dragons, and Stephen Hawking voicing himself, and Deep Blue, the computer, the AI computer, Deep Blue. Basically, they're trying to figure out how to reverse the issue. They reckon he's supposed to die, and they try and kill him, but then other rifts appear, which throw. Basically, they disabled the space continuum. Meanwhile, Gary Gygax keeps throwing dice to determine things, and it's like, basically, they do cause all of time and space to disappear, and they end up playing Dungeons and Dragons for eternity. And I don't seem too bothered. And then we see the wrapping story, and it turns out the professor is not demonstrating the what-if machine. He's using the what-if machine to figure out what had happened if he'd created the the thing longer. And he realises it's a bit pointless, so he's not going to invent it. Because if only I'd if only the world was ready for it, it was all that sort of stuff. Yeah, pretty fun. I mean, Futurama's always fun. It's a bit of an aside, really, a side road for this podcast. But I'm trying to be as inclusive as possible. And it's got anthology in the title, right? Anthology of interest. And at some point I will probably get to the second one. I don't think they did any more than 2, but I can't remember for sure. So it's kind of fun. Yeah, recommend from me. It's a little different from what we kind of used to. We've seen Nichelle Nichols in this before in the various episodes where they cover Star Trek, and I think we see Stephen Hawking several times throughout Futurama. So it's kind of fun. I liked it, and the stories were short and sweet. The 3-red stories. I kind of liked it. It was kind of fun seeing Bender 500 feet tall as well and fighting through New York. So yeah, pretty decent. I can't remember which characters they cover in the third one, but I guess it's the other characters rather than Bender, Fry, and Leela again. I imagine it's Farnsworth, Zoidberg, Hermes, something like that. Who knows? So not a bad one. A bit of a recommend, I think, from me. So very enjoyable. Okay, so I went up there, but may I ask before I go, is anybody out there?
I'm not.
We now return control of your television set to you until next week at this same time, when the control voice will take you to